Is procrastination something you've done anything on in the past?
I mean, procrastination is an interesting one. There's different aspects to it, and I don't know all of them, but there's two aspects I'd like to point out. So there's just a pure energy aspect. So the reason why very little good gets done in the office from 2 to 5, for example, is that you've exhausted your brain from the context shift. So your brain is just crying uncle at that point. I can't sit down and do this hard thing. I'm out of fuel. So there's an energy piece to it. Another twist on procrastination that I've been looking into off and on, and I think is interesting to keep in mind, is if we're talking about a big project, you're just not getting going on it. And a lot of this came out of, by the way, my work I used to do with students. Sometimes what's going on here is that your mind doesn't trust your plan. So I just want to throw that angle in there as well. One of the defining features of the human brain, one of the reasons that we can separate from other animals, is that the human brain can both conceive of plans, right? So abstractly conceive of a plan and then evaluate that plan. Is it good or bad? And if it's good, you feel motivation to do it. And if it's bad, you feel dismotivation, right? So this is very important. Again, if we go back to the Paleolithic, the emergence of the modern Homo sapiens, you might be thinking through like, well, maybe what I should do is charge this mammoth and whatever, jump on it and stab it through the eye to kill it. Well, the plan evaluation apparatus is like, no, that's a bad plan. You're not going to feel motivated for that. And then you have another idea like, well, maybe we should throw spears from far away, and you feel motivation to do it. Some procrastination is basically your brain rejecting your plan. And so I first saw this with students where they'd feel procrastination to study. And it's because it's just an incredibly vague thing. Their mind's like, I don't know how to evaluate this. Like, what do you mean by study? And a lot of really successful students I looked at for my books, they never used the word study. It was much more concrete. I'm going to take these chapters and we're going to do a quiz and recall here. And this works really well. And it's going to prepare me well. If your mind trusts the plan you have, you're much less likely to feel dismotivated. This also comes up a lot, I think, when people take on ambitious projects, which I think is good. But if you haven't actually done the work of figuring out how that type of project actually unfolds, what's really needed to succeed, your brain knows, look, you don't have a plan here that I trust that's going to lead us to success. So no, I'm not going to give you motivation to do this. And it's why there's a lot of novels that last 3 chapters before people give up. It's because they got excited about the idea of writing a novel, but didn't actually do the work of figuring out what would it really take to break into the world of novel writing. They just want to do their 1,000 words in the morning and feel motivated and post it on Instagram. Their brain's not tricked. It's like, I don't see a plan here that makes sense. I'm not going to invest energy if I don't see a plan I trust. So I think that's a big part of it as well. Your brain is smarter than you think, which is sort of an ironic statement. If it doesn't really think you have a good plan that's going to achieve something worth achieving, you're not going to feel very motivated. That can feel a lot like procrastination.
Why is it that the thing that we want the most, we almost resist in some way the most as well?
So great question. Right. So why is it that we resist doing the work or undertaking the tasks or doing the activities that would lead to the outcomes that we value the most, that we care about, that we want, that would have material benefits and all kinds of other things, yet we can't get ourselves to move that? Well, there's a fundamental dilemma that people face that I think self-worth theory helps to unpack and unravel, so to speak. So I would argue, or self-worth theory argues, that this dilemma is, if we're going to demonstrate our worth, if we're going to achieve something of significance, and again, this is an important fundamental human need. Most people have a desire to achieve for themselves and be perceived as accomplished, right? Fundamental human need. But to do that means I need to undertake tasks, activities, do things that are challenging. They're hard, right? So, because if I do things that are easy, if I go down the street and I play basketball with the local 7-year-olds and I dunk on them all day, I don't get to say I'm the greatest basketball player ever. That's too easy of a task. That doesn't really demonstrate my athletic ability. So I must take on a hard task to demonstrate that I have high ability, right? If I do easy tasks, that does not demonstrate that I have high ability, that I've achieved. However, as soon as I undertake a hard task, what have I introduced to this equation? I could fail. So the dilemma is I have to navigate these two things. And then if I really care about something, if I fail in an area that I really care about, then the attribution, the implication to myself is greater, right? Because this is the thing I really care about. It's not like I got up on the karaoke and I sounded awful, well, so I don't care. I'm not attached to that. Or I made a terrible mess of that spaghetti that I made. I'm not a chef, whatever, I don't care. But when my identity is wrapped up in it, then what's on the line is not only my performance, but my self-concept and how other people perceive me. So some people really get this example, so let me give it to you. So when I was in school, I would get really tense writing these papers, right? And I would kind of get stuck and I couldn't move. And even if I was writing, I was feeling a lot of anxiety. My heart's beating fast and a lot of physical tension. And if you think about it, that's completely disproportionate to even if I care a lot about grades, which I did, but 10% of my grade for that paper, my reaction is completely out of proportion, completely outsized, right? My physical, my emotional reaction. Why? Because that's not the only thing that's on the line. It's not just the 10%. That's a reaction to am I going to be perceived? If I get a bad grade, what does that mean about me? I've always been told I was a good writer. What happens if I don't attain that? So what's going on is you have these two levels. It's the act and the consequences of that act, the evaluation, and then the meaning of that assessment, that appraisal by somebody else, and my self-appraisal. And if I don't meet my own standards, for instance, or I don't meet the objective standards, then I experience that as failure. And failure due specifically to my inability. That evokes shame. So if I'm not capable of doing something, if I'm not able, I don't have the skill, intelligence, strength, we often feel shame. And that's really a powerful motivation that shuts us down emotionally, cognitively. So what procrastination is actually, one way to put it is that procrastination is a way to turn possible shame into probable guilt.